I think it's just continuing to learn. I've been here for almost 12 years now, but I can tell you there's so much more for me to learn, so many more people to meet, different organizations to get involved in the industry. I think it's just continuing to take it day by day and make sure that we're providing superior customer service and continuing to get better internally.
Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers. Today we are talking with Joe Bach, who is Vice President of Field Operations at Minnesota Elevator, also known as MEI. Joe is going on his 12th year with MEI and currently oversees half of the field operations business, which covers 6 states and 7 different IUEC locals. Whether working in the field or in the industry, Joe believes the elevator industry is a challenging but rewarding business that is rich with opportunities. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk. Obviously, we've known each other for a while. We've had a lot of conversations, but I'm excited to just dig in a little deeper to your career and also learn a little bit more about MEI. I'm just curious, how did you get started in the elevator industry?
Yeah, that's when I think about getting started in the elevator industry, I think that anybody that's worked in the industry, whether it's in the field or in the office, knows that family ties are really strong within this trade, especially within the trade. And for me, it's not that path. I didn't go that route. I don't have a dad or a brother or an uncle or a grandpa that was a mechanic or wherever worked in the field. For me, coming out of college, I graduated in 2008 from Minnesota State here in Mankato, and I never would have thought that I would end up in the elevator industry. I don't think really anybody would ever think that unless you get some sort of family connection. But graduating college, I actually worked in the finance and the mortgage industry for a period of time. The institution that I worked for ended up going through a merger with another company. And our division was effectively closed, and wanted to stay in the finance industry, especially with mortgages. I had kind of grown to like that type of work. And I had a position lined up here in Mankato with another company, and went through the interview process, had accepted the job. I had a start date, and I received a call from Mark Iverson here at MEI. And I had submitted an application, my resume, for a sales position for our national sales department. And Mark had called and asked if I would want to sit down and have an interview. And I remember one thing that sticks out in my mind when I think about MEI in the early days, especially when I was looking at coming over here, was I looked at the website that we had. And the website at the time, in my opinion, was not good. It not a lot of information. It was hard to navigate. And obviously I didn't know elevators, but I thought to myself, I said, you know what, let's go meet with them. Let's sit down, have a conversation, kind of see where it leads. And really during my initial interview, I started feeling more and more comfortable with the culture and kind of what I was learning about the industry, very brief at the time. And here I am today. I ended up starting with MEI in 2010, and I'm going on 12 years with the company now.
That's cool. That's cool. Kind of don't really know how to explain what was the draw, it sounds like, but ultimately it's just getting to know the people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, I remember my interview process, and I interviewed with a panel of individuals here. And my first supervisor at MEI, her name was Bern Beckman. She's still with us today. And Bern had made a comment to me that she said, once you get in this line of work in the elevator industry, you're going to look at elevators differently. And I asked her what she meant by that. And she said, when you get in an elevator, you're going to look at the capacity. You're going to look at who the manufacturer was. You're going to look at what the ceiling's made out of, what kind of buttons. How do the doors operate? Man, this thing takes a long time to level, stuff like that. And I've always remembered Byrne saying that to me, and she was 100% right. Anytime that I get in an elevator now, I'm looking at those things, and you get in an elevator with your friends, and you're looking at stuff, and you always get the jokes and the wisecracks from your friends about,
Sure.
hey, what type of elevator is this? But the passion for the elevators, it's really, for me, it's a passion for not only the elevators, but just the industry in general, with the types of relationships that I've made, and learning from a lot of different people.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm curious, what was your initial response when she said that? What was it kind of like? What are you talking about? I mean, how did
Yeah,
that hit you?
yeah. Obviously I'm in an interview, so I kind of just said, okay, but in my mind, I'm thinking, like, all right, I really have no idea what she's talking about.
Sure.
She's talking about all these different components of the elevator. And for me at the time, I kind of just nodded my head and said, okay, and we moved on. But absolutely, I think about that conversation that we had all the time.
Very cool. So my other question is, when did you realize you had a passion for elevators and for the industry and the work you
You
do?
know, again, I think the learning curve in this industry is very steep, and it's very steep because of all the different makes and models and vintages. You never often do you look at the same situation. I mean, you come across the same types of elevators all the time, but they're in different types of environments, different conditions. They've been modded, different things like that. I think for me, the passion for elevators in general is more so just based on, again, like I said, just I thrive, and I'm stimulated by learning. And in this industry, learning is constant.
Sure.
I don't think that I'll ever know everything that a lot of our mechanics know. They've probably forgotten more information than I'll ever learn. But yeah, I think really it's just the variety and the variation day to day, with what we work with.
Cool. Cool. How long before from the time you started until you were like, yeah, I made the right choice? Did it take a while, or
Well,
did you?
you know, probably more of a testament here to MEI and the culture, but instantly when I came to MEI, I could feel a change in the type of culture. Obviously, coming from finance industry and banking and mortgages, the culture is very different. And when I came to MEI, and we're talking about continuous improvement, and we're trying to do the right thing for the customer, and really help educate our customers, and help them navigate through the roadmap of success for the type of equipment that they have, or the type of equipment they're looking for.
Sure.
For me, I fell in love with that, and it really didn't take long, to be honest with you, Matt.
Very cool. What would you say has really contributed to your success? And you talked about this steep learning curve, so there's obviously a lot to do to get in and.
Yeah, for sure. My success here at MEI, it's been learning from a lot of different people. When I started at MEI, I started as a national sales rep, international sales side of the company. So I was quoting elevator packages and components to our national sales customers, other elevator contractors that would install our product. And from there, I went. I made a quick change in the field operations after about 6 months, and so I started working out in the field more with mechanics and doing surveys for new elevators, for modernizations, for repairs, and really, I was a kid, a couple of years out of college, and I was going and looking at this equipment, really not knowing what I was looking at,
Sure.
and jumping on tops of elevators and riding with our mechanics and looking at equipment, doing surveys, stuff like that. So I learned so much from the mechanics that I worked with, from different sales reps and project managers, our engineering team. So many people here have helped me. Not only that, but for me in general as a person, never wanting to get complacent or lose the edge per se. Like I said, I'm stimulated by learning and by challenge, getting challenged. And obviously here, there's so much to learn in this trade, and that's what kind of keeps me going, is just wanting to continuously learn and never get comfortable.
Sure, sure. Are there any particular mentors that you felt like, wow, that person really made an impact?
Yeah, that is a tough question for me to answer. For me to pinpoint one, two, or three individuals here, it'd be super, super hard to come up with those names. There's so many different people that come to mind when you ask me that question. Again, for me, it's a lot of the mechanics that I learned from. Our mechanics here at MEI and with a lot of elevator companies, I mean, they're the face of the company.
Sure.
They're the lifeblood of our success, for field operations account managers, they keep the recommendations coming in. So absolutely, a lot of mechanics have helped me along the way. Our leadership team here has been absolutely pivotal too throughout the years. I can remember when I was new to the company, and certain members of our leadership team would kind of pull me into their office and show me information and talk about org structure, talk about strategy, give me a little bit more insight on, what they thought, where the company was headed, things like that. So,
Right.
I'd like to think that maybe they saw some potential in me and took me under their wing. And I really appreciate that. There's been a lot of individuals here at MEI that have helped me out.
Very cool. Thank you. So I do want to talk a little bit about MEI. I've been a little fascinated because I know as I've talked to people around the country, at times they'll say, oh yeah, I know MEI, they make good, equipment. But then if I say, they also run, branches and do service, and they're like, what do they, they didn't understand that. So I'm curious, how did MEI get started? And then what was it that, I guess, led them into both having service branches and manufacturing?
Yeah, so MEI got started. MEI was started back in 1971 by John Romness. John is our founder, our CEO, and prior to that, John worked for Otis. He started with Otis Elevator in the Twin Cities in 1962. John worked for Otis for about 2.5 years, and after Otis, he had some brief stints with Westinghouse, with Lagerquist along the way, and then eventually he ended up with a company called R&R Elevator, which he worked for about 6 years. John did service with R&R Elevator out of the Twin Cities, and part of John's service route was every month he would dip down in kind of southeast Minnesota. He would touch Rochester, Winona, and then he would swing over to Mankato. And when John was thinking about starting a family and kind of getting the family started, he really wanted to raise the family out in the country. And so, and anybody knows that where MEI is located, our headquarters, we're out in the country, kind of out in the middle of the cornfields out here. So it's a unique location. But in 1971, John decided to pack the family up and move down to Mankato. He sold his house in the cities and took the cash and rented a farmhouse down here at the site where our headquarters is still located.
Wow. Okay.
And started really knocking on doors and doing service and acquiring service contracts and kind of getting it set up from that point on. John, when John left R&R, he did have a great relationship with them and still did some installations down here around the Mankato area as well for R&R.
Very cool. So starting with service, starting out of a farmhouse in the middle of the country, how did you get, or you, MEI, get into, the custom engineered solutions that you provide today? When did manufacturing become part of that picture?
Yeah, really, manufacturing kind of got really hot and heavy in the early 90s. But as far as the actual start, it was around 1974. John always had a knack for building, and in 1974 started getting more involved in remodels and doing a little bit larger elevator repairs along with the service business that he had. So he would buy steel locally. and had a facility on the farm site, where he could drill holes and weld and really looked at existing elevator designs and was interested in getting that going himself. John's brother Earl was actually with Westinghouse at the time,
Okay.
and knew that John was kind of dabbling in the manufacturing side of things, had an interest in doing that. And with Westinghouse, Earl had some opportunities where they had some POH elevators purchased out of house, and he flipped a few opportunities to John and said, "Hey, why don't you take a look at some of these and see if you might be interested in helping us out or building a package or building these piece parts for us." And so John ended up doing that. And one of his first projects was a little freight elevator that he worked on that was actually down in Iowa. And over time, Earl and John continued to have this partnership for these types of elevators that Westinghouse wasn't going to supply. And, John wasn't really marketing the manufacturing side of MEI at the time, right, back there in the mid 70s. Earl was coming to him, and Earl eventually kind of communicated and got the word out to different regional people with Westinghouse that, hey, John's got this capability to do this. And that's really kind of how it got started back in the early days. Like I said, in the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s, when construction mod was really starting to pick up, that's when MEI kind of migrated back into the Twin Cities and started attacking some of those opportunities. And today, today we're at around 300 employees, and we're manufacturing about 500 elevator packages per year.
Wow. Okay. So obviously the manufacturing side is big, but then you've also got, remind me, I know you've mentioned that, multiple states that you're doing, the service repair, the mod, you've got your teams going. Remind me what those states are.
Yeah. So we're involved. We've got offices in 6 different states. We are in obviously Minnesota. And with Minnesota, we cover the Eastern Dakotas, Western Wisconsin, Northern Iowa. So we're in Minnesota. We're in the state of Michigan. We have an operation. Our newest operation is down in St. Louis. That was an organic startup that we started back in 2017. And then we're also down in the Kansas City, Springfield areas, out in Colorado around Denver, and then the state of Wisconsin itself too. So currently we're around 9,000 units on service, and every one of those markets that we're in, we kind of cover all the field operations business units as far as service, repair, construction, and modernization.
Very cool. Thank you. So sorry, I was told by one of your I guess just not a colleague necessarily, but another gentleman in the elevator industry, about the Barclay Center in New York, in Brooklyn, I guess specifically. And I didn't know it at the time that MEI actually made the elevators that are lifting and semi trucks, entire trucks, or buses. Did you get a chance to work on that? And what do you know about that project?
Yeah, when I think about probably some more of our more notable projects, I mean, that one is probably top 3, if not the number 1 project that I've been around for. I didn't necessarily work on that project. We were kind of in the midst of that project when I first started at MEI, but it was a high profile job for us, and heard about it a lot. But the Barclay Center job, it's 2 80,000-pound semi lifts in the Barclay Center in Brooklyn, where the Nets play. We started that project back in June of 2010 and really worked on that throughout 2010, 2011, 2012, and then kind of did some support after it was installed and during the installation. The whole premise with those elevators is, where you've got team buses coming in for NBA games. There's obviously different events, concerts, circuses, different events that are held at the Barclays Center. You're in downtown Brooklyn. Parking is an issue, especially for semis and team buses. So we worked on that project with Otis, and really what it is when a team bus approaches the center, we built an elevator that they can essentially drive onto from ground level, and it's about 30 some feet of travel. It lowers the semis down to the event level, to the arena level, and the buses are able to pull out onto a turntable. The players get off, they go play the game, the event happens, they shower, get back on the buses, and it actually can spin the bus around, so they're able to pull back onto the elevators, raise the buses or the semis up, and they're able to pull off onto the street level and leave. So there's two of them in there to kind of help control the flow of traffic. And they're enormous cars. We've got a few pictures around MEI. They were too big to actually set up in our plant, and so we set them up outside during the summer. And there's some pictures around MEI of all of our employees that are headquartered in Mankato here, standing on the platform, and there's still room on both sides of the group. So very unique jobs. One fun fact, that I always remember from hearing about that job is the specification actually called for the elevators to be able to move elephants. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So kind of a neat project to work on. And definitely there's a lot of information you can find about those projects on the internet. They interviewed some NBA players about it, and guys like Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade had some pretty neat comments. So definitely a fun project to be part of.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I was wondering about the specification. I mean, how do you even go and, create that without a pretty creative mind, but also knowing that whoever you give it to is going to come through. And that's what impressed me, is that
right.
You came through and it's working. So you mentioned that's one of the top. Tell me about maybe one other high profile or maybe one of the crazier projects you've seen come through.
Yeah, another one that comes to mind for me that I was actually involved in. We have a college in Minnesota that's a service customer of ours. It's the College of St. Benedict's. It's in central Minnesota. They have a stage lift in their performing arts center. So the stage lift is roughly 45 feet wide, and it's a half moon shape. And this half moon shape, actually, there's two sections that raise and lower. So St. Ben's called us up. We went up there and took a look at the existing stage, and they were having some issues with the hydraulic jacks settling on that project, on that existing stage. So what it would do is it create a lip in the middle of the stage. And so you've got people walking or moving furniture, you're having, events or plays, and people can trip over it. So they called us up, and we had a team of individuals that went up there and took a look at that project. And what we did is we ended up building some shoring, and we shored that stage up and had a team of elevator mechanics go in and remove the hydraulic jacks. And there was 4 jacks on the main section and 2 jacks on the smaller section. So we took all the jacks out, and our plan was to go back in with hydraulic jacks. But one of our mechanics that actually does service up in that area of the state had another performing arts theater on his service route, and knew that stage lift had screw jacks in it. So he recommended that we go with screw jacks. And so we ended up putting a screw jack system in to raise and lower both sections of that stage. And one of the things that I remember from that project is after we had torn out the hydraulic jacks, we had gotten just a ton of rain that summer. And it was raining every single week. And we actually had rainwater come up through the holes, and that pit of that stage flooded. We must have had 2 to 3 feet of water in that pit.
Right.
And so it was a very complicated project, a lot of moving parts, and obviously MEI, our niche is custom stuff, but we don't do stage lifts every single day either. So sure. It was a learning experience for everybody, but it turned out great. And the college has a great product, a great stage lift that's going to last for years.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm curious, what makes MEI different from other elevator companies? Obviously it's not as big as some of the majors, but how would you answer that one?
You know, probably an answer that you'd get from a lot of people, but it's 100% true. I really think it's our people that we've got. We have a tremendous amount of talent here, both in the field with our mechanics, the experience that they have, to inside with our plant, the things that those guys are able to do in the plant. Our engineering horsepower we have is mind blowing here. The things that we're able to do. I like to think that MEI can do a lot of things that other companies maybe aren't willing to do, don't want to do, or simply can't do. Whether it's odd shapes and sizes, it's round glass cars, it's heavy freight cars, certain types of applications like that. And then as far as, the field operations side of the business goes, the one constant that remains with us is we do what we say we're going to do. And do we make mistakes? Absolutely. But, when we tell a customer that, we're going to be there to do service every single month or every single quarter, it's important to us to make sure that our guys show up, that the customers see us on site, that they see us doing service, that, we're putting our customers first. So really just the people and some of the values that we have and a desire to continuously get better every day.
Cool. And you talked a little bit at the beginning about the culture. How would you describe it? I mean, like I say, you've referenced it a little bit, but how would you?
Yeah, MEI is a family-owned company. We're an ESOP. The Romness family owns 70% of the company, and the employees own 30%. We are growing, we're evolving, and we know we have to change with times and evolve and continue to get better and get sharper. But the one thing that hasn't changed is, we still have that family feel. The culture here hasn't changed so much that it's not a place that you want to come to every day. With the people we have and the relationships we have here, it's fantastic. Some of the things that I think are unique with MEI and the culture is I can leave my office probably right now, and we're in the middle of our annual beanbag tournament here at the office. So we got beanbags flying out in the lunchroom. I think we're finishing up a cribbage tournament. So there's just a lot of unique things that MEI does for the employees. And when we talk about culture, our culture in general and everything we do is based off of continuous improvement. We have a continuous improvement program here that's been around since I've been at MEI. And what we do is, we ask our employees for a certain number of personal for team improvements every single year. We encourage them to do random acts of kindness, volunteer not only their time, but any extra money that they're able to give. So we have recognition trips for people that meet these improvement goals. So just a lot of other things besides elevators that make this a great place to work.
That's cool. And I did notice a little video on your website about giving to the community. And, it sounds like you were kind of describing that the company actually encourages and promotes that within.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. In the last couple of years here, we've really put a greater focus on the community outreach. And, we have a Learn, Give, Do campaign per se that that all of our employees are getting involved in. We have insight trips that our employees take twice per year. We're involved with the Christian Appalachian Project down in Kentucky. So every year we send two groups of employees, a couple groups in the spring and a couple groups in the fall down to Kentucky, and we help the folks down there remodel their houses or fix issues. Obviously there's different situations all over the world, but and we're involved in many different types of organizations that help give back. But yeah, that's one thing that comes to mind when I think of that.
That's awesome. So I always like to I guess, ask a question. It's a careers podcast. So I'm curious, what are some of the challenges you see with staffing? Are there any particular jobs that you have a hard time finding talent for?
Staffing in general, that is a tough one. And I think that's one that a lot of companies deal with, especially today. The elevator trade, the industry is very competitive, not only with mechanics out in the field, but, just finding individuals that, kind of want to take that leap and learn about elevators. One area that comes to mind is, I keep talking about the learning curve with learning all the different aspects to the trade, hiring account managers. Sales is sales, but sales in the elevator industry is a little different. You need to know what you're talking about. It's important that you understand the equipment. It's important that you're able to put it in terms for our customers to understand.
Sure.
Not all of our customers are experts on elevator equipment. And I remember when I came to the trade, I didn't know what a door give was, so trying to explain that on a daily basis to our customers can be a bit of a challenge, but certainly sales positions comes to mind, especially with field operations. So that's probably one of them for me.
Cool. Yeah. So as we wrap up, I got just a couple more questions for you. And one of my questions is you talked about growth and the way that the MEI is continuing to invest in employees, but what would you say the future looks like for you and for MEI?
Sure. For MEI in general, for us, really, it's all about taking care of our customers. I'd like to tell you that we have some grandiose 3, 5, 10-year plan, but we really don't. We want to continue to take care of our customers, make sure that they're happy. Obviously, the lights wouldn't be on right now and the doors wouldn't be open if we didn't have customers. So it's continuing to provide that great service, making sure that we educate them, provide a roadmap for their success, with field operations customers, service customers, and again, in national sales. For me in general, I think it's just continuing to learn. I've been here for almost 12 years now, but I can tell you there's so much more for me to learn, so many more people to meet, different organizations to get involved in the industry. I think it's just continuing to take it day by day and make sure that we're providing superior customer service and continuing to get better internally.
Very cool. Thank you. And if there's one thing you feel like you've learned in those 12 years that you'd like to share with listeners, what would it be? What's that magic bullet, if you will?
Magic bullet. Being a younger person in the industry, I think one thing that I would say to anybody that is, coming out of college or looking for a career to get into, I would definitely look at the elevator industry, whether it's the trade, or just being, involved in the business side of it. As we move forward here, a significant number of our mechanics nationwide are going to be retiring, and there's opportunities to get involved in a trade that is rewarding and challenging. But then internally too, elevators, like I said, the elevators aren't going anywhere. We're going to have to continue going up. There's only so much
Sure.
land out there. So definitely it's a unique trade, and it's something that I don't think a lot of kids coming out of school or thinking about going to college think of. So I would encourage people to take a look at the elevator industry. And then again, for me, kind of the common theme for me in my career is continuous growth, personal growth and development, and really never losing that edge, always challenging yourself and learning to be uncomfortable and getting better.
Very cool. Very cool. So last question I'll ask then, if there was one thing that you would love to see more of in the elevator industry, what would it be?
I think that's a great question, Matt. One thing that we struggle with a little bit here, and it's ever evolving, is we struggle with proprietary equipment. We've struggled with proprietary equipment from the OEMs, learning how to work on that equipment, the diagnostics, different things like
Sure.
that. It would be great if, there was an avenue to get more in tune on that. We rely heavily on our mechanics across the company, heavily on the
Sure.
knowledge. A lot of our mechanics came from other companies, and they bring that knowledge over. But definitely a way to become more in tune with that and be able to work on that equipment to better serve our customers.
Very cool. Joe, thank you so much. It's been a blast talking with you. I've enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.